Is there a family history of, insert deadly, usually cancer-themed disease here? I reply unknown in big, angry, larger than necessary letters. Then I X out the entire section of family history for good measure. Part of being adopted is being able to quickly breeze through the medical history forms required by physicians, even if it also means that casual, time-consuming tasks for others trigger a brief emotional torrent in me. I was adopted at 6 weeks old. I've always known I'm adopted. My mom has always been open about it. My mom has always explained being adopted in a positive way. And despite how my parents lovingly and sincerely droned on about how much my birth parents loved me, how much of a sacrifice it was for them to give me up, part of me had my doubts. And part of me, if I'm brutally honest, felt rejected. I have a natural tendency toward questioning things. Before motherhood, I questioned whether my parents could really have known what was going on in my birth parents' minds. Maybe their decision to give me up wasn't so pure and selfless. I mean, really. It was 1970. Roe v. Wade hadn't been decided. That alone limited their choices about how to handle the whole unplanned pregnancy, which was me. Maybe they'd have chosen abortion if they could have. How could my parents be so committed to their belief that I was given away out of love? My birth parents chose adoption, I reasoned, at least in part, out of self-interest. My precocious mind wondered, maybe my birth parents really just didn't want me. Oh, I'm sure they said all the right things to the adoption agency, like that they couldn't give me the life I deserved, like they wanted for me things they couldn't provide, but I doubted and reasoned at times that if they really wanted me, they'd have made it happen. They'd have struggled and slaved and fought to keep me. Adoption was really just easier for them. 9 months of inconvenience, then on with their lives. These doubts, these thoughts, questions invaded my restless mind on many a sleepless night, growing up and into adulthood. Then I got pregnant. At the time, I was engaged to the father of my child, but her conception was not planned, and I was terrified. My husband-to-be was thrilled. His joy and steadfastness calmed my fears, but they didn't go away. I knew something inside me was growing and totally dependent on me for survival. That knowledge changed the very core of who I am. And of course, my birth mother was never far from my mind. And my inquisitive mind filled with new questions. Like, did she gain this much weight? Was she plagued with morning sickness? Did her body also grow this weird skin tag on her face? Because I kind of hope she did, because I'd like to believe that somebody else lived through something that embarrassing. Did she fall in love with me sight unseen, as deeply and irrationally as I had with my own fetus? And yet I moved forward as a pregnant woman, a pregnant wife, a pregnant school social worker, and my fetus became my companion. I talked to her, I sang to her, I screamed to her on my back under the sink as I raged to loosen a stubborn pipe fitting while replacing the kitchen faucet. It just had to be done right then, even though I was 8 months pregnant, as big as a house, and my husband was out of town. And I cried when I finally installed that new faucet. I cried as I told my unborn daughter that she was powerful and righteous and good, because I felt those things. And I knew my birth mother felt those things, and I believe at some point she said them to me. My pregnancy stirred a primal instinct in me, the foundation of which is to protect, at literally all cost, my child. My daughter's birth roused a maternal beast in me, an animal ferocity to protect my children that knows no reason or limits. I felt a love so powerful and all-consuming that it defied and continues to defy all reason. And I started to understand my birth mother. I started to lose my doubts about her motives for placing me up for adoption. I began to let go of my childish idea that giving me up for adoption was simply 9 months of inconvenience. Then she could get on with her life. Even though my experience of being adopted has been flavored with a sense of loss and a longing for knowledge about my genetic history, Being a mother has added a new dimension to my adoptee experience. As a mother, I feel an overwhelming appreciation, compassion, and shared sorrow too deep to describe for a woman who ferociously, irrationally, and selflessly protected me at enormous cost to herself and loved me enough to give me away.